Now it's time for the Voice for the Industry podcast.
All right, we're back again for part 2 of the Taylor Olson episode. I'm really excited about this one too. I'm excited a lot on this podcast, I guess. But no, if you've already listened to the first part, I know you're really excited about the second part. Just some really great stuff, right?
Yeah, it talks about applause and how he went from race car driving back to entrepreneurship. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and it's a great conversation. So, all right, everybody, here we go. Episode 2, Taylor Olson. See you later. All right. So you sold Slingshot. You bought the big house. Everything's good, right? Your counterpart Chris decided to travel around the world. He's off doing his Sri Lanka one day. He's living the life. So that wasn't what you decided to do. So tell us about how what happened. You sold. You kind of after the glow and real life is back. Kind of what was the next step?
Yeah. So I got married shortly after. We bought a new home. We sort of settled into this new family, a new life we had together. And I assumed that I would be a stay-at-home dad and just, I don't know, I was looking for hobbies. So I went and did some race car driving and did some auto races with a neighbor, started skiing a bit. I ultimately, the thing I did the most was I started reading a lot. I just caught up on a lot of just fun books that I'd been wanting to read. So I was reading a lot. I was going to go teach a class on entrepreneurship at the University of Utah. So I was working on my syllabus for that class. And I would say over the course of a few months of that, I started to, like, at first, I think anyone can relate that has been working really hard for a long time. You're just happy to do nothing. And you need so just be able to relax and get rid of the stress felt really good at first. And then it kind of turned into boredom, and it turned into feeling restless and uneasy and a little bit unfulfilled and unchallenged. And I didn't set my alarm clock for months. I started to feel a little bit lazy. I'd wake up at 10 o'clock randomly on a Tuesday. And and as I just continued to think about things, in some ways, I came to the same realization that I had in law school, which was like, I think what I actually want to do with my life is be an entrepreneur. Yeah. And I started to have this thought that maybe the Slingshot experience wasn't sort of this crowning achievement of my entrepreneurial career. Maybe it was my training ground or my education and how my me learning how to be a founder and how to be a leader and a CEO and develop a network. And maybe it was meant to put me in a position to do what my life's work really was going to be, which was maybe to breathe into existence a company that could just have incredible impact and be a force for good in ways. And I started to think about that. And then the early idea of applause, which had been in my mind for a number of years, started to experiment with it and ultimately decided, like, let's go. Let's do another one.
Yeah. So, and the other thing too is like there's entrepreneurs and then there's pioneers, right? So you guys started really a business that you created a business model that didn't exist, right? There really wasn't anything like that. And you've kind of done the same thing with applause. I mean,
oh, totally.
Right.
Totally.
So you're not just an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur that's kind of like breaking new ground and creating these things that didn't really exist. So what made you go with the direction of applause? And we're going to let you talk about applause and plug it shamelessly and everything else. But how did you get, from that point where you're like, you know what, I just think what I need to do and fulfill my life is to be an entrepreneur, how did applause come to be?
Yeah. So, I mean, on your point with sort of the pioneering stuff, and, thank you for the compliment. I do think this is true for any business, pest, lawn care, home services, a technology business. I think in a lot of ways, the business becomes a reflection of the founders and the leader, and especially the CEO. They have sort of the most impact on culture. For better or worse, you see the strengths and weaknesses and personality of I think founder and leaders in the business. It becomes clear, and I think that some of the similarities to the businesses that I've done is I love the idea of discovering, thinking about a problem that exists for a set of customers, and discovering a new solution that is innovative and creative, and it's never been done, and it's a new category, and it's not necessarily competing with anything that exists. It's just additive and new. And I really love that. That is the type of entrepreneurship that I want to do. And it's also, I think, when you start a business, it's an outlet for your creativity. My two daughters are so gifted artistically. Like, they are just, they can replicate something they see in an amazing way. They can just think of an image or an abstract idea, get it onto the canvas, and it's like, wow, I can't do any of that.
Right.
My outlet for creativity is entrepreneurship.
It's
So
business. Yeah.
yeah. So like, so I think one of the reasons that I wanted to do applause was while I was at Slingshot, you have, this huge amount of hourly workers. We had up to, I believe, 500 call center agents at peak. And over time, as you're really trying to deliver great outcomes for your customers, you start to realize that like your frontline or hourly workers aren't quite as motivated as much as you are. They don't care quite as much. They don't have the same incentives, and they're not always going to deliver in the way that you would if you were doing the job. And that is sort of a dilemma that I think anybody in leadership has felt. And I searched for technology solutions to that when we were there, and we did like a recognition platform for a while. We did a few things. We built leaderboards. We tried a lot. I never felt like we really moved the needle on it much or cracked the code on it. And I also felt from our customers, which were home services companies, that they felt that pain too. That, at times with their technicians or their CSRs, they just didn't feel like they were always getting their best, and they sometimes felt like it was disappointing to the business's customers. And so I'd had it in my mind to build something there and to work on that. I also wanted to deliver it to home service companies, Pest and Lawn again to start, because I just freaking love those companies and owners. I fell in love with the industry. There's just there's a humbleness, there's a sincerity and a savviness. I think a lot of folks in Pest and Lawn are very good operators, and I like them. I have a lot of friends in the space, and I thought, I'm just going to hang out there and keep building stuff for these industries that I know and love. And so that was sort of I think the main impetus. And then lastly, as I thought about how we could sort of motivate and get more owner-like performance for hourly workers, I also thought about my dad, because my dad was an HVAC guy, and he did sales and servicing at a local HVAC company, and he did it for nearly 20 years. And my dad was very intelligent, very well read, very good with people, very well liked, very well respected, and he probably had the underlying skills to be anything. Like a judge, an accountant, a CEO. And the way that his life went down through some divorces and some financial misfortune, he ended up getting into one of these spots where, like, I need to put food on the table and I need to pay the bills. And he ended up in a job that, was a job that was a good job and a respectable job, but also a job that he felt like he didn't always really make enough or feel recognized enough to have a ton of satisfaction in it. And he felt like he'd sort of underachieved. And I felt like he didn't feel great about his career. And I felt like sometimes it impacted his happiness and it impacted his self-esteem, if I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah.
And he was a great dad that sacrificed a lot for me and my brother and sister. And I had it in my head from the beginning of Slingshot of, if this company is successful, I'm going to retire my dad. And I'm going to give him enough money that he now can get out of that job and he can go do whatever he wants. And we're going to fish together and we're going to make up for lost time. And then as Slingshot was getting towards the end and I was getting excited about giving him that experience, he passed away suddenly. He had a heart attack, passed away in his sleep. And that's something that we're all going to go through, and we're all going to lose a parent. It's super painful. The timing and the way that it happened and the fact that I never got to sort of give him that reward, it really hurt and it didn't feel good. And as I thought about the idea of applause, I thought, I think that maybe launching this company is a way to sort of rewrite my dad's legacy. And maybe it's less about his dissatisfaction with his career, and it's more about the things that maybe could have made him feel better about it, and that he complained about the most, quite honestly, which was not having a chance to make as much money or be recognized. Maybe that's some of what needs to be in the product to get it to work. And maybe if this thing works, we can one day have 1 million technicians just like my dad, that their lives are a little bit better off because we exist. And that can be a way to rewrite his legacy. And as that thought took hold, because I was sort of lukewarm on, frankly, whether or not I was going to commit to another startup, because they're so hard. It's like, you've got to in some ways be insane to try to start a company. And I knew how hard it was. But after I thought of that, I felt like this business is supposed to exist, and we have to do it. And so that was the other reason why.
So a couple of things. So it's, like your dad, like we were talking about earlier, like you were talking about the hospice people and how people's biggest regret was they didn't really get to do what they wanted to do. Right. And it kind of sounds like, you're, and your dad, and it also makes me, I just saw this video somewhere recently, and it was a college student in his dorm room, and you can see the traffic in the background, and it's like a T-Mobile truck or something. And it was his dad, like in the middle of the night, driving to go do something, so his kid, who's in college, could be in college. And you could see the kid's dorm room, and behind him and out the window, you could see his dad's truck. Right.
That's awesome.
And, it makes you think about, like, that's really what it's all about as a parent, right? I mean, you'll do whatever you have to do. And many parents take jobs that they don't really want to take because they have to take care of their family. Their family's responsibility comes first. So
100%. I think maybe a bigger thing to point out too is, like, most people, 80-90% of folks, if not more, are in a job that's sort of like, it kind of makes sense for their life, but maybe isn't their great passion. It's not like, oh, this is like, I am fulfilling my life's work with this job. Right. But nevertheless, they still perform it well with dignity, and they feel good about it, and it's a win for them. And I think that one of the things that I thought about with my dad that relates to applause and this idea is that I think when people are winning in their job and really doing good work, and somewhat counterintuitively, when they're working a little bit harder and putting in more effort and getting those outcomes, they feel better about it. And it, like, just creates more life satisfaction. Sure. And so that's also, part of applause, is if we can through, accountability, gamification, incentives, all of this stuff, get a technician to be even better at their outcomes, like, they're going to enjoy their work more, and they're going to feel more satisfied about it.
Well, this is a perfect segue into applause. Applause. So first thing, a couple of things I want to know where you got the name from, but then just tell us everything about applause, what it does, the benefits. We've been talking about it. Let's let everybody know what we're talking about.
Yep, totally. So from sort of a name standpoint, the part of the idea was that we're gonna co-create this thing with our customers. Like, we have ideas, but we're constantly going to be talking to pest control, lawn care, home service companies, and co-creating features that make sense with them. The one thing that we want to make sure is always sort of the heart and soul of the company is that we are recognizing and rewarding great work, and we're applauding it. And there's going to be an element of positivity and recognition that is always going to be in this thing, regardless of which direction the features go or what we build. And so the name, it just sort of felt,
It makes sense.
It just sort of felt right. And it felt like it would center us on sort of a great, it would center us on what the company was all about. So
it's a great name. It's a great name for what the company does. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. So that, and then we started kicking around the idea a little bit in 2021, late 2021, 2022, started to think, okay, we are going to build a company here, and started to recruit what became the co-founding team. And very much, the thing that's crazy about being a second-time founder is everything is easier, like meaningfully easier. It's easier to raise money from investors. It's easier to get a great co-founding team. It's easier to recruit great people. It's easier to get customers. It almost feels unfair at how much easier it is. And I very much wanted like an incredible team, co-founders, early employees. And so I wanted co-founders that had already also built and scaled great technology companies. And so we have repeat founders on the co-founder team, and they're incredible. They are so good and bring a skill set to the table that I don't have. And I think we make it just a great team. So that was a lot of just early on is just putting that together. And then, like our first insight was, well, it's 2021, 2022. Tipping is becoming more common, and all these digital tools that we use, it seems like it incentivizes and motivates folks at restaurants and delivery gig apps. Maybe we should just make it easy for people that want to recognize a great home service provider that came onto their property and served them and went above and beyond. Maybe we should just make it easy to let them do that, because that didn't exist. So that was just the first little feature, knowing that this is just the first idea, the first little wedge. This will be one of 50 things that we do one day, but let's get started somewhere. And so we started doing that. We had good response. It became a little bit polarizing, which I think was a good thing. It got attention. Some people were really into it and said, hey, this is motivating my technicians to care more. Go for it. Others were like, no, we'll never allow that. And so then the next iteration, which was sort of late 2022, was, okay, let's build in a lot of these other things that indicate the technician really did a great job with the customer. And let's build incentives into those things that are sponsored and paid for by their employer. And that would be things like Google reviews, and a CSAT or NPS response that's a 1 through 10. Hey, the tech did a great job today. Requesting information on an add-on service or product is a good indication the technician did a good job. Referring a friend or neighbor to the company is a good indication the technician treated the customer well. And so we started just adding in all these things, and then let the company decide if they wanted to do a small spiff or bonus to it. We built the underlying payment infrastructure to allow that to happen instantly, because we strongly believed that for someone that is an hourly worker or at, maybe $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 wage level, getting money fast and quickly is really meaningful to them, more meaningful than I think a lot of us realize. And it will be more motivating. Like if you can just imagine you're on a property servicing the homeowner, and you really go above and beyond. You make sure to take care of them. You're friendly to them.
Bring the garbage can up.
You put little boots on before you go in the home, so you don't track the mud in. You sort of go get that high wasp nest that you had to bring a ladder out, and that's annoying. But you really do it, and then you leave. And then 5 minutes later, you see that they left a Google review, they mentioned you by name and said what an incredible job you did, and you get a bonus instantly from your company. I mean, you can just see how that would be very motivating, and it associates the reward with the behavior of treating a customer great instead of maybe waiting to the end of the month to have it calculated. And so that was just part of the core thesis, and that was the stuff that we started to do in 2022.
Yeah, no, and I could see like I get that, because the thing is that technicians are generally, their job is solitary, right? There's nobody going, hey, great job, Taylor, you did a great job on that house 20 minutes ago, right? So they and then the fact that you get it right now instead of when you get your regular paycheck, you get a $2,000 paycheck, and $60 of it was your tip. That doesn't mean anything. Whereas like you said, 5 minutes later, boom, I got a $5 tip, right?
Yep.
And then 2 stops later, oh yeah. So, and I remember that before, obviously long before Applause, but people would send in tips, especially in the holidays. And I can remember the pride that the technicians had, and how much it meant to them. And they would, like, of course, they'd be in the tech room going, "Oh, I got it. Anybody else get a tip?" So I mean, you guys are spot on with, I think, the impact. And for many years of my life, I was the guy crawling into the house or selling this or selling that. So I get it, and I think it's fantastic. So just to be clear, Applause is a program that allows customers to review technicians and also give them a tip, right? If they feel they deserve it. Of course, the company has to be in on that, right? And then there's also some things you guys have done to allow the company to internally manage, measure, and compensate them as well. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah. So, and then early on, clear back in 2022, we pretty quickly realized that, hey, with the tipping component, it can't be pushy, it can't be forceful. That needs to be just very elective, very soft. It needs to be very clear that it's not expected. It's above and beyond. We also wanted to give control to owners and managers to say, hey, of all the things that you can communicate to your customer through the Applause technology after the tech leaves the home, you get to decide what's shown, what's not shown, what order, what sort of algorithm tweaks we want to make. So some companies, they really want to show Google reviews or Facebook reviews, and that can be the first screen or the only screen. And we love that. And then other companies are really into getting a net promoter score, sort of a CSAT, and that can be the first screen. Others might be interested in an add-on service that they really want everyone to know about. Others want to remind folks about the referral program and make it easy for folks to submit a referral. And so we got into a stance in 2022 of whatever the owner thinks best for their business, and then however they feel incentives will motivate their team in a budget-friendly way that makes sense, like they're in control. We have a lot of data now to share best practices, but they're in control. And I would say, some of the most common ways to use Applause today is to say, like, hey, we can check to see if a Google review was left in the last 6 months. If it was, there's no point in sending that to the customer. Instead, send them an add-on upsell or referral or NPS. If they haven't left a Google review, let's show that. People still love to get a lot of Google reviews. It's great to get those shout outs for the technicians. And most companies are bonusing their technician on that. And it might just be $5. But these little rewards, they are instant and they add up. A technician might be getting another $100, $200, $300 worth of sort of micro incentives throughout the month through Applause from their employer. And it's motivating to them. And they're seeing the rewards of putting their best foot forward and doing their best work. And so that was there. And then we started to do manual spot recognition. So one of our insights was like, look, most of this stuff needs to be automated. Like folks, I have this theory that folks that are in management and leadership get into field services as a work because they don't generally want to sit behind a computer all day. They generally like to be on the move or, in the field. They'll be behind a computer, but they don't want to be there all day.
Right.
So I don't like to give them a lot of administrative tasks within software in order for them to see value. So like pretty much everything that I just explained to you is completely automated front to
Right.
back. And then, but we also said like, look, there may be, every company's different. They may have tons of different ways they want to recognize and reward an employee. Let's just build broad-based spot bonus recognition tools so they can go into our app and they can just give a bonus and a shout out to anyone. And that shows up. And then we started to work on, and ask customers like, hey, we've got like these 5 things that give a good indication of performance for your technician. What are all the other things that you either do measure or want to measure to get a consolidated scorecard of performance? And let's build that. And so we built we call it a scorecard, where it pulls in their safe driving score from the fleet management software.
I didn't know that.
It can pull in time and attendance, revenue per route, reservices, sort of everything that a company would want can automatically flow in to a consolidated scorecard for the technician. They can see how they're tracking towards goal in the middle of the month. It can then be associated with a bonus that can be paid once they hit goal. On top of that, across all the things that I've mentioned, we have a lot of leaderboards where they can constantly see like, hey, how am I stacked ranked against my, the rest of the crew? And they love competing for that. They can do competitions to earn extra money on any of those metrics. And, so those are, I would say, a lot of the main things that we're doing today.
That's pretty well. And now also what you've done is you've taken it from the technician and moved it into the CSR.
Yes.
Right. And we have an integration with you guys, but so now the same thing can happen for CSRs. The customer gets a text after the phone call ends, right? And they can do the same things. They can incentivize. And I got to tell you, we developed what we called ACAT, after call auto text. And basically, when the call ended, we would send a text out on the customer's behalf, of course, and they could give a score 1 to 5 and all that. Well, once you guys rolled that out, we said, you know what? There's no point in using ours because Applause has so much better, honestly. Right? So we really don't really market the ACAT anymore because we just say use Applause because we're sending you the call data, and now I think we're almost to the point where, and a CSR can label a call. And so you guys can then take that label and say, oh, well, and customize what you send out based on that, right? So if it was an unhappy call, you don't want to send them a review, but like if they had really good things to say about this. So I'm really excited about that
I am
functionality.
Too. Yeah. I mean, and to your guys' credit, Voice for Pest, you guys have always been on the cutting edge of what's something new, either through a partner or that we can develop on our own that can add more value and just a little piece here and there. And I think this is a great example of that. If I remember correctly, it was your guys' idea. And we had always intended, like as we started the company, we sort of put out a 5 to 10 year vision of where we thought the ideal state of this company would land from the products and features that we'd built. And we tried to make it somewhat loose and flexible because we're always going to get feedback from customers. We'll always change our mind. But on that vision, we had always assumed that really the service side of the business, which is primarily the technician and then the CSR, like we're going to do a lot of work there. And we're certainly going to bring the CSR in and help them have an opportunity to get rewarded with a great customer interaction, get measured, leaderboards, scorecarding. And this is the beginning steps of that. And it's obviously, with my experience at Slingshot, it's a role that I know well. I know how to motivate them. I know some of the challenges that leadership has of getting them to consistently do great work and speak well to customers and represent the business. And we're just super excited to bring that in. And I think Voice for Pest was the perfect place to start.
You certainly are familiar playing on that field. And I got to give credit to my boss, Tom Welsh. It was his idea. He's the one that kind of leads everything on that stuff. But all right, well, that's great. Well, so our final topic, I guess, is we have to talk about AI, right? Anytime
Yes.
two people have a conversation today, whether it's at the bank or at the drive-through, you got to talk about AI, right? So, and I know that AI is constantly changing and upgrading and shaping. What do you see like AI, even for applause, but just I mean you're tied into the industry for a long time. What do you see like AI the future? Where do you see the biggest impact? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. And if it's okay, maybe I'll just start with like, is AI going to be this big transformational thing
Right.
that it's touted to be? Because sometimes something gets hyped up a lot and it doesn't really become what we thought. And I think an example of that is like you probably remember the cryptocurrency Bitcoin frenzy during 2020,
Yep.
2021. It didn't end up sort of impacting people's day-to-day lives, I think, in the way that it had been hyped to. It
Yeah.
still could, I'm not a hater on it, but it doesn't interact with our lives that much today.
Right.
And so with AI, I think it was fair to say, like, is this sort of a neat technology trick that's kind of fun, or is this like fundamentally going to change the way that we live? Would it be as fundamental as like the internet, for
Internet.
example?
Yeah, that's how I always compare the two. Yeah.
And my view is that it will be, and it'll be sort of somewhere in between. I think the best analogies for it are somewhere in between the internet and autonomous driving, because when autonomous driving, there was a technology breakthrough there back in 2000, I don't know, 13, 14, 15, sometime around there, when it started to become clear to those sort of in the know in Silicon Valley that vehicles are going to drive themselves one day. This is going to happen. And it started to get invested in and hyped a lot. And here we are 10 years later. And I mean, it's coming, but it isn't true that most of our cars are driving themselves right now, full stop. That's just
I think they
not
will,
what's
though.
happening.
I think they
Yes.
will.
Yes.
I was in San Francisco last week, and I took a Waymo driverless vehicle twice.
You did it?
And I loved it. I mean, and everybody I tell is like, "Oh, that's terrifying." And I'm like, I'm a nervous guy. I don't like heights, but I had no fear. I got in that thing. She talked to me. She knew my name. It's so cool. You walk up, the car unlocks when you get close enough. It knows you're there,
Yeah.
right? So somebody can't steal your ride. And
Yep.
then you can play music. But anyway, I mean, this thing can drive, though, Taylor.
Yeah.
I mean, we're driving down the road, and there's a UPS truck in the right lane in the city, right? Like always is. This car like comes over, and the left lane's going, and it's inching out, and it's maneuvering. It can drive, and it was fascinating watching the steering wheel move. You can hit a button and call somebody. Somebody can remotely drive it if they need to.
Yeah.
Stuff like I didn't feel any. I wasn't uncertain. I wasn't fearful. I thought it was fascinating. The only thing I'll say they need to work on is the pickup. It doesn't really get as close as you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the first time it was like we were here, and then it was like over there, which wasn't bad. And then the second time it pulled up pretty close, and then it just decided to go around the corner, and it says you have 2 minutes. So we're like running down the street because it's like around the corner. But other than that, it was a fascinating experience. So sorry to go on, but it's definitely. I mean, I would love. I told my friend Ari from Ari Rockaway, who I think I told him like I would love to be able to just have a driverless vehicle. I would just love to not have to worry about driving. Driving's stressful and everything else. So I'm all in. I'm all in on
You're
the driverless
100%
vehicle.
right. I mean, that's where I was going, is exactly your point, that it's taken longer than we thought, but it's obvious where it's going to end. And we are starting to see meaningful self-driving within taxi and a little bit in trucking, and it is clearly going to get there.
Yeah.
And so I think that AI is somewhere in between internet, autonomous driving. I think that it has been so hyped that it's a little bit exaggerated on what it can do, but fundamentally we know where it's going. It is going to get there, and I think it will be as transformative as the internet. And there are things that are happening today with AI that are just incredible. And so I'm of the opinion that as a technology company, if you don't embrace it, you're toast. So like we have to be innovating all the time. And then I think as a service company, you probably have a little bit more time. It's not like your industry is going to be entirely upended because of it. But I do think it wouldn't be wise to ignore it, because there's ability to be more productive or get rid of costs that are there for the taking right now. Right. And you don't really want to be in a position where your competitors are doing that and you're not. I think over the long term, that'd be detrimental. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. And when I see, and I've said this before, is like, I think that AI is not going to make a company that's okay great, right? But I think what AI can do is AI can get you all of the information, the tools, and everything you need to make those impactful decisions. To make your company great. Like, without AI, and like you were talking about the commissions for the incentives for technicians. I remember years ago, it would take days to figure all the service level and the cancel rate and all that stuff. And now you get to me, it's like AI is giving the humans all the information they need, and it's super accurate and stuff you never knew before, but humans still have to do something with it. And what we're seeing, because, we're trying to drive forward a lot of AI stuff too, is we're seeing our customers that understand that and that are taking the information AI gives them and putting it into place. That's the impact, right?
Yeah.
Just AI telling you some great stuff. That's great, but you got to take that information, do something with it. Yeah.
100%. Ingesting large amounts of information, making sense of it, and then communicating it in a human natural language way where anyone can understand. AI is fantastic at that today.
Right.
The other way that we've looked at it for Applause is like, we're not going to turn around today and say, oh, it's applause.ai and everything we're doing is AI, because some of it doesn't make any sense to do. But we have looked at our tools, workflows, and our customers and said, what are sort of jobs that are being done right now by a person that AI could do? Like, or where's something that's manual that could be automated because of AI, and we can increase productivity or remove costs for a company. And one of sort of the obvious places that we found, which was sort of funny, was that our tool was staggeringly good, more than we expected or customers, at helping a company generate 5-star reviews on Google. We didn't realize that, well, by incentivizing the tech and all the it was going to be 4 or 5 times the amount companies were used to getting. And so we'll have companies that, like, over a 50-year period got to 1,000 reviews, and then over a 5-month period gets another 1,000 through Applause. And what that did was create work where someone had to go onto the Google business profiles to represent the business and respond.
Right.
Thank you for saying that. You're right. Rick is the best technician. We're so grateful that it went well. And lots of the commentary is the same. And so you can ingest through AI how a business talks to their customers by just downloading all of the responses. You can train the AI to speak like them, and then you can have the AI respond to all the business reviews. And we've been doing that for over a year. People love it because they're very surprised at how well it sounds. And it can be fully automated, of just say, hey, we've seen enough. We trust the AI. Let's go. Or it can be partial, where the AI can spin up a response, and then you can have someone on your team look at it and say, yep, love it, and hit send. And then, either way, however it makes someone feel comfortable, there's no doubt that it increased productivity and in some cases removed cost.
Yeah, no. And I think that what you said, there's a big key, trust. I think a lot of people still don't trust it, but we're going to get to the point down the road. I say this, that it's going to get to the point where we're going to have AI pilots, and initially they'll have a human being with the AI pilot. Eventually, though, it's like the internet. It's just going to become the way our world works. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's crazy.
It totally is. I mean, I think maybe another thing to bring up is like what's some low hanging fruit type of stuff that people could use AI for today. I think a place that almost every role in most companies that are within the office could be using AI today is note taking. There's so many good AI note-taking apps for video calls or even in-person meetings when everyone's aware that it's happening. Yeah. And I think a lot of folks that haven't tried it would be very surprised at how good it is. And you got to train it a little bit. You got to teach it. It's sort of like a very smart college grad that is just sort of wicked bright, but actually knows nothing about the real world. And you got to teach them some things.
Right.
But then what it does is it just allows you to be more present in a meeting, and it takes away a 15-minute chore at the end of a meeting to summarize all your notes, find the action items, email it out. That whole thing can be removed. And that's just a nice little productivity gain for anyone today.
And we're doing that for our customers because our AI is creating a note summarizing the call, right? We can push it into the CRM they're using, so then employees don't have to take notes anymore, which the problem was employees didn't always take notes, and the notes weren't very good. So it's making a huge impact. But all right, well, this has been a fantastic conversation. We're getting to the end. We got to kind of wrap it up, I guess. But we got to have our game time. You ready to do a little game time, a little fun time at the end?
Yeah.
I think
I don't know if I know what game time is, so hit me.
We're going to play a little game. That's all.
Okay.
Carissa, come on back. All right. We're just going to do a little fun game. You know, it's just a different kind of podcast, right? So what we're going to, and we had a couple of variations. The first game didn't seem to be too popular, but we have one that's a little easier, I think. So here's the game. You and I are each going to name as many states as we can in 30 seconds. Well, you're going to do it, then I'll do it. Okay. And the winner gets, if you win, you get a T-shirt. Carissa, you got a T-shirt? What's it say?
Yes, I do.
There you go. So you talk about incentivizing, right? We're incentivizing our guests on this podcast to win a T-shirt.
Okay. And I'm assuming that there's ground rules of no Google, no technology.
You have to keep your eyes closed. That's the only rule.
Okay.
Yeah. If you got to keep your eyes closed because I don't know what you're looking at. And I don't know if there's somebody over there with a cue card. I don't know what's going into your headset. So, I mean, but of course it's mandatory. You don't have to do it. If you don't want to play the game, we don't have to play.
No, that sounds great. I can't say I can't say I'm going to be good, but I'm absolutely a willing participant.
All right, that's what I like.
And you didn't know about this question in advance.
Hold on. This is a true story. I did know. We had this conversation, and Carissa said, "You can't practice," and I have not practiced. So, honest. So
I happen to know you as a man of your word. So
I am a man of my word.
Okay, let's do it.
And plus, I already have a shirt. So what's the point? But anyway, so Carissa, can you keep the time, the 30-second timer? Because I had to turn my phone off because I kept getting all these phone calls, and I apologize, but. I'll do that next time. So and you can choose. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I can go. Yeah, I'll go first.
All right. So So Carissa, whenever you're ready, count Mr. Taylor Olson
down.
I'll
count you
we'll
down. 3,
and
2, 1.
And then I close my eyes.
Close your eyes. Just say the names. I mean, I trust you, Taylor. You don't have to close your eyes.
I'll close them.
You don't have to, though. I trust you. You're a man of your word, too. It's up to you.
Okay.
Eye closing is optional.
I'm going to close them.
Okay.
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, Utah, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, Texas, Indiana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, New York, Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, Delaware, Rhode Island, Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, Missouri.
I counted 35. What did you count?
Yeah, 1 second.
I just used my fingers.
33.
33. Wow, that's really good.
Is it?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. What size shirt you wear? Because all we have is women's large.
I wish I wish I was a medium. I'm filling out a large nowadays.
Yeah, we had a guy that came to work for us, and he said a medium. I said we don't have boy sizes.
Dude, you've been looking trim and good lately. You might be able to revisit that medium. So
I'm not quite to the medium level, but well, thank you. I appreciate that. Definitely smaller. All right, I'm ready, Carissa. Closing my eyes. 3, 2, 1, go. Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, New Jersey, New York, New Hampshire, Maine, California, Oregon, Washington, Texas, New Mexico, Nevada, Wyoming, Utah, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Mississippi, Alabama, going up, Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, Pittsburgh.
Done.
I can't think of
27.
Ah, you beat me. Hey, congratulations. See?
Raven, I was
There you
convinced you were going to get me.
No. See, I didn't cheat.
You didn't
Now,
sandbag it. You
I didn't
actually
sandbag.
tried.
Yep. Now I actually tried. Look, I'm not going to let somebody win, right?
Yeah.
I'm the host, right? But the original game was saying the alphabet backwards. So the idea was that every guest would say the alphabet backwards, and whoever did it the fastest would be the reigning champ. And we had a little trophy we're going to put their name on. But it seems like that's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And I can do it because it's just something that's one of those weird things I can do pretty good. So I just didn't think it was that hard. But after several people said, "Oh, there's no way I can even think about doing that," we came up with that.
You could just rattle it off right now, like just zip.
I can do it usually pretty quickly. ZYXWUVTSRQPONMLKJIHGFEDCBA.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, that was good.
I appreciate you letting me show off the one thing I can do well. That's my one talent. That's it. Don't ask me to do anything else.
Dude, hang your hat on it. I like it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this has been great. I think we're going to probably have to do 2 episodes, huh, Carissa? Because that was some good stuff. So,
For sure.
anything else you want to share with the group before the 8 people, the 9 people that are going to be watching before we stop?
Yeah. Nothing that really comes to mind. Nothing that comes to mind. If something does, I'll hit you up and we'll go episode number 2.
There you go.
And thank you for having me on, man.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for being on.
Fun to chat, fun to catch up.
Yeah.
I feel like we've known each other now for over a decade. Yeah. And when you were a customer, and then when you were sort of a fellow software entrepreneur and vendor, I've just always loved seeing you, man. You got awesome energy. You're a great guy. And
thank you.
I think you're the perfect person to be the voice for the industry.
Thank you for joining us.
See you next time.